test first?
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2.
And then go. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I have a quorum of the committee in the room, and so I'll call the 73rd meeting of the Planning Committee for this term of council to order. It is the 22nd of April. This is a public meeting to consider the proposed comprehensive official plan and zoning bylaw amendments listed as items 6 to 11 on today's agenda. For the items listed above, only those who make oral submissions today or written submissions before the amendments are adopted may appeal the matter to the Ontario Municipal Board. In addition, the applicant may appeal the matter to the Ontario Municipal Board if Council does not adopt an amendment within 120 days of receipt of a complete application for zoning and 180 days for a complete application for an official plan amendment. Une feuille de commentaire est disponible à l'entrée pour toute personne désirant soumettre des commentaires écrits concernant les modifications. There is a sheet at the table to my far right, so if you would like to provide written comments for any of these amendments. If you actually wish to speak to the committee on any of these amendments, we'd ask you to fill in a request to speak form. It's a form that's at the table under the large Ottawa sign, and if you give it to the committee assistant to my closest, or right under the sign, they'll make sure you get on the agenda to speak to the committee. So, members of committee, let's just see if we can get, we've had one regret. Councillor Caudry won't be here today. He is ill. Are there any declarations of interest? No. None? Okay. We'll see if we can adopt some of these items through a consent agenda. So we'll go through. So confirmation of minutes. Minutes 72, Tuesday, the 8th of April. Carried? Okay. Item number 1, we have, which is an application to construct an addition at 205 Crichton Street, a property designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act and located in the Edinburgh Heritage Conservation District. We have someone in opposition and someone in support, so we're going to come back to that. Item number 2 is the Treasurer's Statement on Development Charge Reserve Funds for 2013. I have no one registered to speak to the committee with respect to that item. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the committee with respect to item number 2? You do. Okay. Do you want me to hold it? Is it a quick question? Okay.
Yeah, so here, Mr. Chair, I just had a question on it. With all the funds look in good shape except for when you put in what's already allocated for spending in those ones, and then you end up with huge deficits. And I'm just wondering how that is impacting on how we're going to get that money with the DC bylaw we're doing right now. Is it going to mean that what we've already allocated means the things we want to put in for the future can't get funded because we're going to use the money up?
Mr. Chair, the simple answer is no. It doesn't mean that future things you want to get developed won't get built because of these potential deficits. These will be recovered. These deficits will be cleared over time from incoming DCs. We include the deficits in the calculation, so the future DC is going to fund this and the new works that are identified in the background study.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Can we receive the report for information? Received? Okay. Item number 3 is the status update planning committee inquiries and motions for the period ending the 15th of April 2014. I have no one registered to speak to the committee with respect to that item. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the committee with respect to item number 3? No. Members of the committee, is that received? Received. Okay. Item number 4, Memorandum of Understanding on Funding for the 2014 Employment Land Review. I've not received any requests to speak on this item. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the committee with respect to item number 4? No. Members of committee, is item number 4 carried? Carried. Okay. Item number 5 is a memorandum of understanding with respect to Millennium Park. I don't have anyone registered to speak to the committee with respect to item number 5. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the committee with respect to item number 5? Okay. Councillor Wilkinson? Is it a quick question?
It might be. It's just I like the project. It's
Right.
not a kind of opposed to George. I think it's a great idea. I was really disappointed. Then this is a change in policy because last year when I asked for the same thing in a park in my community, it was turned down. They said the city wasn't in the banking business. So I'm glad that we're going to actually help get some of our parks going now. The question just that I had is, and I think that is if the special levy has to go against the thing which is over and above, I guess, the normal DCs. How does that happen within the DC bylaw so that you can actually have it happen and make sure the payments come in? Because that's one thing I didn't see it quite clearly in the report.
Mr. Chair, we don't have the final numbers in for the park development charge versus the Millennium Park development charge. I just don't want it to be said that it's over and above. The subject lands in the east end will be paying this as their district park charge, whereas they will not be paying the district park charge to the other parks within the city. As to ensuring that payments come forward, it's key to this arrangement moving forward that the subject developers are in agreement with it, and they have agreed that if the development charges are not sufficient to pay off the annual payment of the debentures over their 10-year period, that they will top up the funds so that the monies will be available.
And so I take it, like I'm interested in doing this in the new expansion lands in our area where there's a large park, where it would make a lot of sense to use this proposal to do that. So this is a system that could be used in other locations as well then?
If you can get the agreement of the developers in the area to make the top-up payments if necessary along the way that is happening in the east end of the city, it would be possible.
Okay. And is there protection if a company goes bankrupt or anything in payments?
We have taken a letter of credit and cash for 55% of the value, so there is some risk, but it's mitigated by the letters of credit and cash that the city will have on deposit when the agreement is signed.
Okay. And congratulations to Councillor Blais. I think it's a really good thing you've done, and you've set something up I think that will be helpful for the rest of the city.
Okay, good. If there are no other questions or speakers, can we approve item number 5? Is that carried? Carried. Okay. Item number 6, which is the zoning of 120 Prestige Circle. I have no one registered to speak to the committee with respect to item number 6. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the committee with respect to item number 6? Nope. Members of the committee, is item number 6 carried? Carried. Okay. Item number 7 is the zoning of 2575 Innes Road. We have one person registered to speak, Stephanie Morris. Ms. Morris, you're here? Okay. Do you need to speak to the committee if we're prepared to carry this item? You don't need to speak to the committee. Okay, that's good. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak to the committee with respect to item number 7, zoning at 2575 Innes Road? Okay, members of committee, is this item carried? Carried. Okay. Item number 8 is the zoning at 4310 Fallowfield Road. I have one person registered to speak, Kathleen Willis. Ms. Willis, you're in agreement with the application? And you don't need to speak to the committee if we're prepared to carry this item? Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak to the committee with respect to item number 8, the zoning of 4310 Fallowfield Road? Okay, members of the committee, is this item carried? Carried. Okay. We have a number of speakers for item number 9, the zoning at 9 Leeming Drive. So we'll hold that item and come back to it. Item number 10 is the zoning at 45 Mann Avenue. We have one person registered to speak to this item, Mr. Fernie, and no one else registered to speak. Mr. Fernie, you're in agreement with the report? Okay. You understand that Councillor Fleury will be introducing a motion with respect to the design review panel. And you support that motion? Perfect. Woo! That's good. Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak to the committee with respect to 45 Mann Avenue? Are we good to, as long as you carry that motion? Okay. So can we, so Mr. Finney, we're going to, so you don't need to speak to us as long as we're prepared to carry this. I get that. There's no one else ready to speak. So on the motion introduced by Councillor Tierney with respect to submitting the design to the design review panel, is that carried? Carried. On the motion, on the report then? Carried? Okay. So there we go. Thank you very much on that one. Item number 11 is the zoning at 330 Sussex Drive. We have no one registered, we have one person registered to speak to the committee with respect to this item. Mr. Phillips and Mr. Sharif, both in agreement. You don't need to speak to the committee if we're prepared to carry this item, do you? Okay. Good. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to the committee with respect to the zoning of 330 Sussex Drive? Okay. Members of committee, is this item carried? Carried. Okay. Thank you very much. We're going to go back to item number 1, which is an application to construct an addition at 205 Crichton Street, a property designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act and located in the New Edinburgh Heritage Conservation District.
Don't forget the IPD.
Sorry, members of committee, while Mr. Schmidt gets set up there, can we receive the IPD, which is a temporary intervention Fleet Street Aqueduct? Members of committee, I'd just like to receive the IPD, the temporary intervention of the Fleet Street Aqueduct. Is that received? Received. Okay. Okay, Ms. Collins, the floor is yours if you want to walk us through this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members of the committee. The application before you today, as you can see, is to construct an addition at 205 Crichton Street, a property located in the New Edinburgh Heritage Conservation District. I just have a short presentation to introduce you to the project. The property is located at the corner of Crichton Street and Dufferin Road. It's at the eastern boundary of the Heritage Conservation District. You can see the map here of the district. So it is located right at the boundary, so only one side of Dufferin Road is included in the Heritage Conservation District. Just give you an idea of some of the current conditions. The current property is a 1.5-story bungalow with a rear addition. It backs onto River Lane. The current access to the property is off of River Lane, and there is a paved area on the Dufferin Road side. It's across the street from the former Crichton Street Public School, and there is a more contemporary townhouse development in here. This side of the street is more in keeping with the typical single and semi-detached character of New Edinburgh. This house was constructed in 1945 on a previously vacant lot, so it represents the incremental development of New Edinburgh continuing on up until the post-World War II period. It was planned to be a 2-story flat roof building. Only 1 story of that was constructed, and it was capped with a flat roof. The hipped roof was added in 1994. Just a couple of photos of the street taken a few weeks ago when we still had lots of snow. So this is looking across Crichton Street towards the property and the neighboring properties. This is taken from the rear at the corner of River Lane and Dufferin Road, looking at the rear of the house. It's along the other side, along Crichton. The property is designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act. because it is located in the New Edinburgh Heritage Conservation District, which was designated by the City of Ottawa in 2001. So this application is before the committee today because all applications to alter designated buildings require the approval of City Council. In the New Edinburgh Heritage Conservation District, all of the buildings located at the entrances to the district are labeled as gateway buildings within the Heritage Conservation District study. And all of these buildings are to be considered Category 2 or higher because the function they play in marking the entrance to the district makes their retention important. So while this building was, during the evaluation period, evaluated as a Category 3, it is considered a Category 2 because it is a gateway building into the district. So the application before the committee today is to construct an addition, a second-story addition on top of the existing building. So that would be removing the existing roof, building a new addition, demolition of the existing rear addition, and construction of a new two-story addition at the rear. The result would be a semi-detached house with one unit fronting onto Dufferin Road and one unit fronting onto Crichton Street. This is the site plan, so the dark yellow color that you see here is the existing building footprint. The portion of the building to be demolished is here, this piece here, and then the lighter sort of beige color is the new infill footprint. So the addition at the rear will encompass all of this area here. This is the front elevation, so the north elevation of the building. You can see the black line illustrates the original or the existing roof line and height of the building. The image on the bottom is the original 1945 blueprint that was found by the applicant. The intention of the builder, at the time was to construct a two-story building, but for reasons unknown, presumably financial reasons, only one story was constructed. So the proponent is proposing to complete the design of the 1945 blueprint and then construct an addition at the rear. This is the Dufferin Road elevation, so you can see again the blueprint on the bottom and then the proposed building at the top. So the existing height of the building is 5.1 meters. The proposed height is 7.3. The maximum height allowed in this zone is 11 meters, so it is still well below the maximum height if we do not take into account the heritage overlay. The rear addition is shown here with the black line. The new addition will be clad in wood siding to differentiate it from the original building or the original building plus the addition. This is the west side of the building. So as you can see, the black line shows the existing outline. A new entrance will be introduced at grade to allow for accessibility into the building. And then this is the rear elevation on River Lane. The existing access to the property is located off of River Lane, so there will be two parking spaces on the property, one along the west elevation that I just showed you, and one underneath this balcony that is currently that is proposed. So there are no new accesses proposed off the lane, which is typically an issue in New Edinburgh. This is a rendering from the corner of Crichton and Dufferin, just to show you the existing condition on the bottom of the photo, and the proposed condition on the top. So the existing porch will be reconstructed to reflect the character of the proposed porch at the time of construction. So this metal detailing will be removed and replaced with wood, which is more appropriate to the character of the district. Again, this is another rendering just showing you a different view from Dufferin Road and River Lane. The existing cedar hedge will be retained, and the paving along Dufferin Road will be removed and replaced with soft surfacing. This is the streetscape view, so showing you at the top here the existing condition, and then with the new building superimposed on the streetscape, and then the same thing here along Crichton Street, and then again with the proposed building included. So the recommendation of the department is to approve the application to alter, subject to the approval of minor variances by the Committee of Adjustment, issue the heritage permit with a 2-year expiry date, and delegate authority for minor design changes to the General Manager of Planning and Growth Management. The Heritage Conservation District study does have guidelines related to additions. However, this proposal is somewhat unusual in that it is proposing to complete a building that was never finished. So we have taken the guidelines in terms of their objectives and goals. So the section 3.2 notes that the objective of the guidelines is to encourage the conservation and or sympathetic renovation of New Edinburgh's stock of historic buildings. And then the guidelines for additions in section 3.3 aim to ensure that the historic building remains a dominant presence in the streetscape. So in this case, staff evaluated the impact on the character of the existing building, the property as a gateway to the HCD, and the HCD as a whole. There are also streetscape guidelines included in the New Edinburgh Heritage Conservation District study. Section 3.4 has these guidelines. Generally, it's maintain the green character of the laneways and maintain existing trees and plant new ones. So as I just mentioned a minute ago, the proposal includes the removal of the large amount of asphalt along the west side of the property and replacement with soft landscaping, and no new accesses will be created from the lane, so there will be no loss of additional green space. We also evaluate projects under the Ontario Heritage Act using the standards and guidelines for the conservation of historic places in Canada, which were adopted by City Council. So the relevant standards for this proposal are Standard 1, conserve the heritage value of an historic place. So in this instance, the historic place is the Heritage Conservation District as a whole, and so the proposal does conserve the heritage value of the New Edinburgh Heritage Conservation District and reflects the ongoing incremental development of New Edinburgh. Secondly, Standard 4, recognize each place as a physical record of its own time and place. Do not create a sense of false historical development. This one is a little bit challenging because the proposal to complete the design could be seen as falsifying history. However, through our analysis, we determined that as a record of the immediate post-war period, the addition is compatible with the history of development in the Heritage Conservation District. And then Standard 11, conserve the heritage value when creating any new additions to a historic place. So the second-story addition will be differentiated from the earlier building using a soldier course of bricks, so bricks turned on their end to indicate the difference between the two. And the rear addition is distinguishable as it is set in from the side of the building and clad in a subordinate material. And in addition, it's a more contemporary style, so it is distinguishable as a newer addition. A cultural heritage impact statement was prepared for this project, and it is included as a document to the report. It concludes that the proposal has significantly more positive impact than negative impact on the character of the district. It does propose a couple of mitigation measures, which are to reduce the height of the rear addition and potentially choose an alternative cladding material for the rear addition. Those mitigation measures have not been implemented by the applicant, but the department still feels that the proposal is supportable despite not including those mitigation measures. In terms of consultation, Heritage Ottawa generally supports the proposal. Its comments are included in the staff report. The New Edinburgh Community Alliance was circulated on the application and submitted comments that again are included in the report, and they do not support the proposal. I believe they're here today to speak as well. And neighbors within 30 meters of the property were notified of the application and offered the opportunity to provide comments. And I believe the committee has received maybe 1 or 2 comments from the community. So in conclusion, the department supports the application because it meets the intentions and objectives of the HCD. It retains and enhances an existing building. It meets the standards and guidelines, and it provides an appropriate gateway to the Heritage Conservation District. Happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
Quite a quandary, isn't it? You have a proponent who is taking plans that are historic in nature and actually implementing them, and the district, and you're trying to preserve what I consider to be it's not a very exciting building. It's kind of dull. I mean, and the back part of it, which is that the sloping onto the road is really, I mean, not something that I would ever think a heritage conservation district would want to preserve. Yet, it does, right? That's what it wants to preserve. So if I want to go and take a building that is a relatively modern building and actually find the plans and build what the builder actually intended, which I think we all would say is more complementary to the real heritage buildings that comprise the district, you're at a real distinct disadvantage in this process, aren't you? Yeah, that is the dilemma. But I can see how this proposal would be much, much more sympathetic to the character along Crichton Street than the existing building is. But it's going to be interesting to hear the proponents. Are there questions for staff? Now we have someone from the New Edinburgh Community Alliance, Gail McEachran, if you'd like to come up. Come up here.
I've turned your microphone on for you.
My name is Gail McEachran. I am the chair of the Heritage and Development Committee of the New Edinburgh Community Alliance. And I definitely am on the nay side of this particular proposal. And for actually, the primary reason is what Mr. Hume just mentioned a few minutes ago. NECA, the New Edinburgh Community Alliance, does not support the redevelopment plan proposed in the application. And the principal reason is there's a lack of adherence to the New Edinburgh Heritage Conservation District guidelines and also to the city's overlay heritage zoning bylaw governing the size and form of additions on existing buildings in the HCD. The guidelines governing additions to existing houses are clear. The height of the walls and height and slope of the roof must not exceed those of the original building. The side yard setback must be 60 centimeters greater than that of the original building, and the size is limited to 30% of the existing structure's gross floor area. The existing building must remain the dominant presence in the streetscape. In this case, the size and form of the proposed addition is based on a 1945 plan which added a second story to the original house, which was never built. In the CHIS, the author suggested that this building, because it was just a very ordinary little bungalow, was not very attractive, not very interesting, therefore should be, and wants to change the look of the bungalow to turn it into something that he said better matches several larger scale structures in the vicinity. And we feel that a critical point is being missed here. The bungalow has existed in its present form, with the exception of the roof alteration, since 1945. It has been part of the New Edinburgh HCD since 2000. Whether one likes the architectural style or not is irrelevant. It represents a particular moment in the history of New Edinburgh's evolving streetscapes. There is no justification, as far as we're concerned, in turning it into something that it is not. We do not endorse the proposal in its present form. It virtually eliminates, by adding the second story, it eliminates the existing house by incorporating it into a much larger structure, and the two additions combined erase the principle in the HCD guidelines, backed by the Heritage Overlay Zoning Bylaw, of having the existing house be the dominant presence in the streetscape. And because of its size and massing, the proposed structure creates a wall along Dufferin Street reminiscent of historic military forts. In the opinion of the committee, the original bungalow must remain intact with no second floor. This is the structure which should present itself to the street corner, which is a gateway. If an addition is to be attached to the bungalow, the Heritage Overlay Bylaw requires it be built to the same height as the existing bungalow and have the same roof pitch. Alternatively, if the developer proceeds with this proposed plan to sever the rear addition portion of the property from the bungalow, thereby creating two distinct parcels, which I understand is what the proposal is, this opens up the possibility of building a second house not attached to the bungalow on the rear portion of the lot. This dwelling could be accessed via Dufferin Road, a public street which would respect the bylaw which does not permit vehicular access from the lanes. NECA would strongly endorse this solution, as the bungalow would not be compromised and breathing space would be created between the two buildings, thereby eliminating the long solid wall which is now part of the present proposal. It would ensure that the existing structure, representing a particular period in New Edinburgh's history, remains the dominant feature at this gateway corner. As it is now, it ignores the value of one of the guidelines of the New Edinburgh Heritage Conservation Plan, which is to preserve the relationship between the original building and the streetscape, and the city bylaw to protect the lanes. It is yet another example of intensification at the expense of the principles and intent of the New Edinburgh HCD. Thank you very much.
I'm at a loss for words. I understand what you're saying. I really do. But in all the discussions that we've had around the New Edinburgh Heritage Conservation District, this is the first time I've ever I think that we've ever had someone come and say, preserve what actually detracts from the heritage fabric of the neighborhood. Don't allow something that's much more sympathetic to the fabric. And so I guess what I'm asking you is do you not believe that the new construction is much more in keeping with the urban fabric of the district?
No, I don't, because the thing is that there's a great deal of diversity, of course, in New Edinburgh, because there were structures that were built at different times. But I guess what we're preserving here is it is a funny little building. I quite agree with you. It's certainly aesthetically not the nicest building in New Edinburgh, for sure. But the point is that the thing is that it does represent, as I said in my talk, it represents a particular period. We don't really have many examples, if I had maybe only one that I can think of, that's like that in the district, that it's a kind of a little sort of just post-Second World War bungalow, modest little bungalow, so that whether we like it or not, it is included in the district. It's part of the district. So I'm not saying that it can't be improved, the appearance can't be improved, and we would certainly not object to that. In other words, if they wanted to take off the mansard roof, which was a later addition as well, and take it back to the original bungalow, and certainly do some more landscaping, improve the front entrance, whatever, we have no problem with that. We're really talking about trying to keep the form of what was there still there, because it is part of the original district. And that's why we're suggesting also separating the two buildings, making them quite distinct, having the addition separated from the bungalow, so the bungalow remains intact, and then the addition can be done pretty much in whatever form that the developer would like to do it.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Ms. McEachran? No? Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Chris Straka, if you'd like to come up. He's the owner, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd really like to take the time that I have available to answer questions more than make a formal presentation. Certainly the city's heritage planner, I think, has already made my case quite eloquently. A case that was supported by the Built Heritage Subcommittee unanimously, with some notable votes in favor. Certainly the local councillor, who often does support the New Edinburgh Community Alliance. In this particular case, I think it's fair to say, shared your perspective of the proposal that I'm bringing to the committee today. I think it's important to note that in this particular case, I am, yes, a developer, but I'm also a neighbor. The Heritage...
You built down the street, right?
I do.
279
Crichton Street. I operate planning, design, and
But you have property further down Crichton, don't you? Towards
Beechwood.
Towards Beechwood, lattice in the front.
That's correct.
Yeah, got it.
That's correct. I think really the point that I would like to stress in particular with the time that I have is the fact that a heritage conservation district, designated under Part 5 of the Act, is in place to protect the character of an area, not necessarily to protect individual buildings. And on this particular property, with this particular proposal, not only do we protect the character of the New Edinburgh Heritage Conservation District, but I feel strongly that we actually improve what is there. What was begun in 1945 was never finished due to a lack of materials at the end of the Second World War. The original intention for the site was to create a 3-unit rental building on Crichton Street, 1 unit on each floor, and it is our intention to create a 2-unit rental building on Crichton Street in its place, with a 3rd unit located in a sensitive addition to the rear. I could run through a list of 11 points that are, as I said, have been echoed by the presentation already made this morning, but I would really be more than happy to just take questions.
Okay. Are there questions for the delegation? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, members of committee, that's the end of the public delegations for item number 1. I'll close the public hearing portion of the meeting and turn the recommendations back to the committee, which are that the Built Heritage Subcommittee recommend that Planning Committee recommend that Council approve the application, item number 1, to delegate authority for minor design changes to the General Manager, and issue the heritage permit with a 2-year expiry date from the date of issuance. On the item then, is it carried? Carried. Okay, thank you very much. We're going to go now to item number 7. No, sorry, item number 9. Item number 9, which is the zoning at 9 Leeming Drive. Okay, and we have before us the zoning report, which converts this from institutional to residential. So, members of committee, I think we're going to dispense with the presentation because most of you have seen this many times, and we're going to go right to delegations. Is that all right? Okay. Okay. Let me just get to Adam. Okay, so our first presenter is Alan Gagnon. If you'd like to come up. Mr. Gagnon, are you here? Mr. Gagnon, are you here? Okay, I'll hold and come back. How about Paul Williams? Mr. Williams, if you'd like to come up.
Good morning. My name is Paul Williams. I'm a resident in Crystal Beach. I've been there for 40 years or more. I have a set of charts. The first 3 charts...
Can you pull the microphone closer to you? We can't...
A bit closer, is that okay?
That's better.
Okay, my name is Paul Williams. I have a number of charts here. The first 3 charts will give my concern in a nutshell. The remainder is backup information. Okay, that's... Right, we've received the service brief from the city and discovered that there would be 94.6 cubic meters of water stored on the site. This translates to a massive road pond. I will get back to that a little later. I was concerned that a child might drown in this pond and sent an email to Mark Taylor, Peter Hume and others. The result were many emails, but no reply propose a mechanism to limit
a little further away. You're a little too close now because we're getting some feedback.
Okay, is that clear? Okay. No reply was received, and will respect the limit the size of the pond, and hence would remove the public concern. So I have a proposal to the committee to add text to the zoning. Any roadway pond which is large enough for a child to drown in is prohibited. That would be done to both the R2M and the R30. That, I believe, would completely remove the problem and ensure that when we get to the site plan people, the site plan people know exactly what they're doing to take care of this concern. Okay, we got review, I can't say the word, reassessment. Table 3 requires now storage of 166 cubic meters, way up above the previous one. An underground tank will be 3 meters by 4 meters by 13 meters. A massive tank which would store all this underground out of sight. Of course, it'd be very expensive to construct. A roadway pond would be 6 meters wide, the width of the street, 30 centimeters deep, which is permitted by a city document, and 92 meters long, rather large, but less expensive. This pond could be regarded as a massive wading pool in a city park. It would be fenced, and a lifeguard would be employed.
Okay. What you're going to have to tell me, you're going to have to relate this back to why it's a bad thing to move from institutional to residential, because regardless of the land use, the stormwater management is going to be relatively similar. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, if we were considering a development that was institutional in nature, a 5-story seniors home, any other, a church, whatever it is, the stormwater management would be similar. What's before the committee today is whether it should be institutional, the church, the seniors home, or should it be residential? So I'm going to ask you to try and link those two together.
I am not addressing the issue of residential. I'm quite happy with it, sir. Okay. But I am concerned about this issue of public safety.
Right.
Now,
and we'll get to that, but I just wanted to be clear that you have an issue of public safety, but it's unrelated to whether this should be institutional or residential.
No problem with the residential, sir. Absolutely none. The last changes, have made significant change to the appearance, profile of it. Councillor Taylor should be congratulated on getting the change from the original one. So I have no problem there, sir. I'm only concerned about the implication of the plan as it appears in the documentation. I am concerned that this documentation, if without change, will go to the site plan people and will barrel ahead with this, what I regard as extremely dangerous.
So, you've heard the concern, Mr. Smith, about storm storage on the roadway.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So clearly that's an item that, as this committee knows, is something that is very closely looked at and scrutinized through the site plan approval process, and that is a process that will be gone through. Mr. Buchanan is here, who's more the expert on the engineering side of things. If there are any specific items that the committee would like to discuss or have some further clarification on it, Mr. Buchanan is more than available to respond to those.
I guess the issue that, and I read these slides, the issue is about stormwater management storage on the roadway in the new development. I mean, there's stormwater management storage on virtually every roadway in the city of Ottawa. How is this different from what exists on my street?
Mr. Chairman, the stormwater management proposed for this site under the zoning deals with 100-year storm events and deals with a ponding depth.
Do you want to pull your microphone closer, a little closer so we can hear you?
Refers to the ponding depth issue, and ponding depth relates to a 100-year storm event and is well within the design guidelines of the sewer design guidelines. So it's well within the guidelines.
No, I understand that, but I guess what I'm asking is to deal with this gentleman's issue. If I was to look on a street today which has houses on it, take any street that has stormwater management catch basins in their roadway, a certain amount of ponding goes on in that roadway over time, and depending on how heavy the storm is or how light the storm is.
That's correct.
Is that standard, the standard that is on every street in the city, the same standard that's going to be applied more or less to this development?
It can be, yes. Because if it's a site plan, there are other options available, but we're not there at the site plan stage, but this could be dealt with like you're saying.
Okay. Okay. So, do you have anything to add, Mr. Smith?
The only thing I would add, Mr. Chairman, is the public roads, stormwater is directed to the public road network and then is directed into the storm sewer system. There is ponding on public roads. I think what Mr. Buchanan is saying is that this is a site plan, so in fact, we can apply standards, but at this point in time, the information that's been provided to us is entirely consistent with city requirements in terms of on-site stormwater management. The principle of can stormwater be managed or held on roads, it's exactly the same here. It's the exact same principle that applies here. It's just that in this instance, we would be dealing with it much more specifically through the site plan process, but the principle of having stormwater stored on the road and having stormwater on a private site and on a public road is exactly the same.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the delegation? Sir, thank you very much for your presentation. Is Richard Nelson here? Mr. Nelson, if you'd like to come up. Got to press the big button in front of you. There you go.
Thank you very much for allowing me to present to this committee. I'd like to make one comment, first of all, on what Paul Williams produced. I think the city assumption on storm management are incorrect. They are assuming that they will not be putting any more water into the storm sewers than the present school site does today. The problem with that is they're assuming what they call a coefficient of runoff of 50%. The school right now has a building, a front, side, a back parking lot, and a field. The back parking lot does not drain into the storm sewers, it drains into the field. The side parking lot drains into the field as well. So I think the coefficient of runoff should be more like 30%, not 50%, and that means the amount of on-site storage has to go up substantially. Therefore, I think the calculations they're using are incorrect. That's all I was going to say on this part. My presentation is on something different.
Okay.
So unless the city wants to respond to that comment.
Let's hear your presentation, and we'll see where.
My presentation is not on.
You're really getting down to the committee. Really, these type of matters, the stormwater coefficient and how the property drains, is usually matters that are left to the ward councillor and the community to work out through the site plan process. And really, we don't have a heavy agenda today, so we're giving you some latitude. But the purpose of today's meeting is not to discuss stormwater management. It's to discuss the movement of the use from institutional to residential. So,
okay, how do I change the presentation? Sorry, no. Another one. It's the wrong presentation. Yeah. This is the wrong presentation. This is the one I submitted, not presenting. Okay. Sorry. This is the one I'm parking. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, just push this. Right to go forward? Okay. Just for the record, I live around the corner from where the new developments is being planned, and we have some real concerns about the parking problems that this development is going to introduce. The parking issues aren't related to the houses that will be in development, but it is due to the fact that our public community center, Mackey House and Mackey Park, presently use the parking lot of the school for overflow parking. So far, for the last 20-plus years, the users of Mackey House and Mackey Park have used overflow parking at the St. Thomas school site. There are 12 parking spots available at Mackey House, and there's very limited parking on Leaning Drive due to a narrow 7-meter road width and lots of driveways. Sporting events in the summertime can often see 30-plus cars parked in the St. Thomas school site. On February the 5th, I counted 39 cars in the parking lot of the school. And there's an example looking from the front of the school. They're looking down the parking lot of the school. With the development of 9 Union Place, there is no plans to replace the school parking for the Mackey House. We know from previous experiences that the users of Mackey House and Mackey Park will use any available space on adjacent roads. The pictures in the following slides were taken last spring when Mackey House was booked for a baby shower. As you can see, the road was rather narrow, and emergency vehicles could not get down the road. You can also see in this picture that people have no respect for no parking signs. On that particular day, I think we counted 40 cars in the parking lot of the school and another 20 or so on the road. In terms of public opinion, a lot of the users of Mackey Park live outside of the community and have no idea that they may be unable to rent or use Mackey House due to these parking issues. Most of my neighbors I talk to are not aware of the implications of losing the school parking lot. It will probably mean our street, Mackey Place, will become a parking lot for Mackey House users. The renters in the apartment building at Crystal Beach and Carnegie Avenue, which was the old Lintel building before, typically use the school also as their unofficial business parking. Since they can't park on Crystal Beach Drive, I'm not sure where they're going to park. In terms of the feedback from the city, the OCLDC says they were directed by City Council to sell a property, not to solve parking issues. Our councilman, who happens to be chair of the Protective and Services Committee and Protective Services Committee, is unsympathetic to a problem and has stated that we're lucky to have a school parking lot at all. In addition, nobody has researched what agreements were made between the City of Nepean and the Catholic School Board for use of this parking lot in the past. I suspect there's all sorts of agreements, but we're having troubles trying to find the records from the 70s and 80s. Action to be taken. We feel this rezoning application should be put on hold until the various city departments can sit down and solve this parking problem. This is not a typical issue when a developer is proposing something. The city is proposing this, and to me it's a city problem, and whether or not it's political or department-wise, I'm not sure. The parking lot will be gone after this year. We need a solution before it goes. If someone says we're going to solve it in 3 years, it's too late. We feel that parkland should be taken instead of cash in lieu, so we could have had more space to enhance our parking facilities. We've also suggested that the boundaries on this property could be realigned to provide easier parking, but both our councilman and the OCLDC have said this was impossible as it would require council approval. In terms of the residents I've talked to, there seems to be no effort within the city departments to even identify ownership of this issue. We're not sure whether the issue resides with this committee, probably does not. With Parks and Rec, we're not sure. From our viewpoint, the various city departments and agencies need to get together and solve this problem. If nothing is done, then we're going to have to start screening the users of Mackey House and Mackey Park. That's going to reduce the size of the parking problems. It's also going to be less revenue from rentals and field users. By law, we'll need an enforcement officer on call whenever we see illegal parking. When I had that earlier slide that showed Leaning being basically blocked, we called by law and got a court announcement. We're probably going to need parking restrictions on Leaning and Mill Street Mackey Place, and that's going to make it very difficult for people to have their friends over if they can't park on the street. There's one other mitigating circumstance here that may make it worse. The proposed development is saying that each unit will have 2 parking spaces, one in the garage and one in the driveway, and a total of 9 villager spots for 29 dwellings. Well, we know in reality that no one uses the garage for parking. The road width, 6 meters, spelling mistake, does not allow on-street parking. So the question then is, where will visitors in this new development who have 2 cars park, and where will the visitors park? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Although I have some sympathy with respect to the Mackey, the parking issues with the facility, the responsibility for solving that parking problem resolves with the people who book the bookers, which if that's whoever running the building, if that's Department of Rec and Culture, they have to be able to solve that problem. So yeah, I'm not sure that it is a rationale for saying that this property shouldn't be, whether it's institutional or residential, the parking issue is going to be the same. If we were developing, I guess your argument is that until you solve the parking, no development should occur on the site.
Well, I think what we have to find out is who in the city is willing to try and resolve this.
Well, I know who's. If Mackey House is run by the Department of Recreation and Culture, it's the Department of Recreation and Culture's responsibility to resolve the parking and management issues of the facilities that it operates. So to that extent, I think that the responsibility, you can work with your counselor who's very articulate and I think has done a very good job to shape this development to the state that it's in, quite frankly. You've got a relatively benign use of adult lifestyle bungalows. I mean, I think a lot of us who are in, we'd love to have adult lifestyle bungalows in our community rather than a 29-story condo tower. They're the most benign and almost unintrusive uses you could get. So, hats off to you, Councillor Taylor, for being able to achieve that for this community. But so, sir, I will say to you, I think Councillor Taylor may have an answer to the parking problem or how that solution. But
by the way, as a person with a replacement, I agree with you on low bungalows. Stairs are a pain. But the only reason we came here mainly is to try and get this issue, try and get it addressed before it's too late, that's all.
Right. Okay, we'll let you speak, but is there any other questions for the delegation?
No, it's okay.
Thank you very much, sir, for your presentation. Thanks. And is Harry Kingston here? Mr. Kingston, if you'd like to come up. And in the meantime, Councillor Taylor, if you want to enlighten us on the parking issue. Although it's not before the committee, it is of interest, I guess.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the latitude. I think, members heard that there is a concern about, parking. It's a bit of a unique situation. You've got a small format community building that's really designed from a parks perspective, from a rec perspective. It's designed to support the immediately surrounding community. It's really not designed to be a destination center where you're bringing folks from outside the community. It's not built that way. It has over the years evolved to somewhat service that kind of need, particularly with the fields, and they've had the blessing of, at least since 2008, an abandoned school next door. So there was capacity for parking to take place there, capacity that many other centers in other parts of our city don't enjoy, not for that size facility. So one of the things that we've been, through our office, have been quite adamant about and had discussions with the Community Association, which they've taken us up on, is we're doing a number of park renewal projects in our ward. We've indicated that we'd be happy to conduct a park renewal project of Mackey Park and Mackey House, which would look at, the layout, the use of the facility, the use of the building, even the landscaping and the treatment of parking, that type of thing. I've also made the additional commitment that any money that flows into our cash in lieu of parkland fund from a ward perspective, we will expressly dedicate it to work to take place next door in Mackey Park to help try and offset or accommodate any of the pressures of this development. So we have the capacity and the willingness to work with the community in order to address any of these issues as they arise, but we need to start having a little bit of interplay with them about what they would like to see happen at Mackay. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Kingston, over to you.
Thank you, sir. My name is Harry Kingston. I'm a resident of the community, but more importantly, from the point of view of this file, I am the immediate past president of the Community Association who's been working a way to find a solution. I speak in favor of the solution to move the zoning of the property to residential. It's time that the community move forward. Do we have a perfect solution in front of us? Well, that can be ironed out in later stages, but overall, it is the view of the community from people on the street that, yes, it's time to move forward with a development. We can't have the school continue in its deteriorated state. Not knowing what was going to be said by the councillor, I can also assure members of this committee that part of the negotiations was a commitment from the councillor that they would work with the Community Association over time to try and come up with a solution for the parking. Everyone recognizes, okay, the community is going to change. The overall, in terms of progress for the community, moving forward, this file's been around long enough. The school's in the state of repair that something obviously has to be done with it. And in the best interest of the community, sir, I believe that this zoning request should proceed, and I'm available to answer any questions. Sir?
Okay. Mr. Kingston, thank you very much. Are there questions for Mr. Kingston? No, Mr. Kingston, thank you for your presentation. Mr. Phillips, do you want to come up on behalf of the applicant?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Lloyd Phillips. I'm the planning consultant to the Ottawa Land Development Corporation. My firm was retained to prepare and submit a rezoning application for OLDC on the 9 Leeming property. And we've arrived here today to advise the committee that we support the staff recommendation. With me, Mr. Daneshwar Nirmal and Mr. David Powers on my right and left, respectively. Mr. Chairman, a concept plan was prepared with this application and has gone through about a year of evolution. And as I speak, we'll be going through the proposal very quickly. You can see this is a planned unit development with some townhouses along the northern edge. One of the key concerns that was raised was that there were going to be 6 units all in a row unbroken, and again, as part of the ongoing consultation that we had, the final zoning will ensure that there is a break in that. There were quite a few consultation meetings with the city, and that there were a number of concerns, one of them being building height and massing, the compatibility of the proposed housing types with the existing residential character. And in this area, there are a lot of, say, bungalows. It's quite a low-density, older suburban neighborhood that developed in the Crystal Beach area in the former city of Nepean. There's a concern about parkland. We've already heard about parking. And that this represented a precedent for change that would lead to the unraveling of the neighborhood character and fabric. So with all of that, the OLDC staff used these concerns to guide the evaluation of the proposals from prospective purchasers. Late last year, they went out and asked for expressions of interest, and that the concept plan that was shown earlier was the one that best addressed the majority of the concerns. This was prepared by Maple Leaf Homes. It's attached to the report. The plan has a total of 29 units, consisting of 23 semi-detached and 6 townhouse units in a planned unit development. So to address the concerns with respect to height, the maximum building height will be 9 meters. In the surrounding residential area, the height is actually 9.5 meters. So the type of development that is up on your screen, you can see that that's typical planned unit development. That those, in fact, are just to the north on Carling. Whereas you can see in the lower left-hand corner, the image and the profile of the proposal is considerably lower and more in keeping with the character of the area. In terms of things like setbacks, the setbacks have been provided a rear setback for 7.5 meters, and that applies to basically wherever there's wherever the development borders a residential area, which would be on the west in the upper left-hand corner, on the north at the top, and all along the east side that you can see. With the park at the south, it was felt that a lesser setback would be appropriate of 4.5 meters. You'll see on the concept plan, there's a notation in the lower right-hand corner that says Parcel A. Parcel A is part of the school proper, or former school property, and that's 1,238 square meters. That land is going to be added to Mackey Park in tandem with the rezoning, and the zoning of that specific property is going to go from institutional to parkland. The matter of the parking, we feel that there's more than an abundance of parking here. With the 29 units, there will be basically 2 spaces, one in the garage, one in the driveway, plus, in fact, the required would be 35 spaces, but our total is going to be 67. And as part of this 67, we have allowed for visitor spaces that you can see in the northwest corner, where there's, I think, looks like 6 spaces there. Sorry, that would be 7. And then there's going to be another 2 over there on the east, and another one in the southeast for 2 spaces. So plenty of parking being provided within the boundaries of the site. In terms of precedent, this is an important concern, and I think we have to remember that this is a vacant school site, and what's being proposed is highly appropriate and a compatible form of low-density infill, and that the proposed zoning will ensure that that will be applied. And again, this is very much in conformity with city official plan policies, particularly those that apply to the redevelopment of school sites, and in keeping and consistent with the provincial policy statement. And I think the point to remember is that this is not blockbusting of an existing residential area. It's a change from a non-residential use to a residential use.
Okay.
So to summarize, Mr. Chairman, the planning and zoning of this site are the accumulation of over a year of planning and consulting with the community, and it's recommended that the staff report recommendations be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Shirley has a question.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, this is very eerily similar to the one in my ward at the site of the former Graham Park School, and I'm wondering if you've actually looked at that in developing this plan.
Did you want to comment on the Graham Park site?
Sure, through you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I can respond to that because I was involved in the zoning application for that particular...
What a coincidence.
So,
what a coincidence.
Yes, and Mr. Chairman, the property that Councillor Shorty is referring to is the property at 25 Esquimo, which is another former school site that was developed through the OCLDC. And when we had applied for the RFO process that we engaged in was very similar to the one we've engaged in with this particular property. And we had gone out to the market with a similar range of uses, and the market responded with a slightly different product in that particular instance. But The end result was the same. We had an extensive community consultation was undertaken, and we had significant buy-in in that particular aspect. And we had the process was we had consulted with the community to determine what they would have considered to be appropriate infill, and then in the RFO tailored the requirements for a proponent to conform with those requirements. And this is exactly the process we're engaged in with 9 Living Drive.
Well, it certainly worked in Qualicum Green Park, so thank you.
Councillor Harder?
And I'd also remind you, I don't know whether you were on this file back in Nepean, Danishwar, but the on the file of Bayview School, too. Not Bayview School, sorry, St. Thomas School, because we certainly had that come before us several times. Mr. Phillips, were you also involved back then, too, on that one?
No, I was not.
Well, if you remember the St. Augustine, remember St. Augie's on Baseline, it has almost an identical community behind it as well. And that was built in the late 90s, and it's worked out extremely well. So if anybody wanted to go and have a look at that as something that hasn't contributed negatively to the community, and all the people in that neighborhood that came out were absolutely negative about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for Mr. Phillips? No? Thank you very much, Mr. Phillips, for your presentation. I'll call for the last time. I called them earlier. Alan Gagnon. Mr. Gagnon, are you here? Mr. Gagnon, are you here for the last time? Okay. Mr. Gagnon is not here. We'll note for the record that he did request to speak, and he did include correspondence with his request that will form part of the public record. So we're going to close the public hearing portion of the file, turn this back to committee. Councillor, if you have, we're happy to carry this, but if you want to add some closing words, that's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I think you know what you saw was with your latitude kind of a wide picture of some of the concerns that have occupied the community with respect to the site. I am pleased that we're here today, given that you know, this project began, I guess, way back in 2008 when the school closed. And I believe that through the extensive consultation that we've mounted throughout the community, that you know, we've landed on a product and a plan that that addresses the needs and the desires of most of the folks living in the neighborhood. I do recognize, certainly with a high degree of sensitivity, that it's not to everyone's liking. That there are certainly still concerns to be addressed moving forward through the site plan, delicacies that need to be managed as this is formed in this community. But those are ones that we're prepared to undertake, and I think in the long run, the folks, rather than having an institutional use on this site, would be much better served by having additional families and additional residential uses inside this very beautiful and very quiet community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I think you're exactly right that they will be well served by and much better off by what's being proposed. So, any other speakers? On the recommendation then, is it carried? Carried. Okay, that is all for the regular agenda. Can I go to notices of motion? Councillor Hobbs. Peace. Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I have 2 notices of motion. One is in regards to an exemption from the demolition control bylaw for 2 buildings on Parkdale Avenue, or Parkdale and Lyndale. Because these are multi-dwelling units, we were looking at eliminating the cost per unit on the to tear them down, and instead apportion the funds to providing a kitchen for the Parkdale Food Bank. So that is a notice of motion for that. So these properties that are currently vacant and they're having some problems with people that are spending time in them when they shouldn't be, and making a big mess on the street. I've been getting complaints about the garbage that's being dumped there and so on. So we're looking at cleaning up that area and using the money for a more constructive purpose that suits the community. The second notice of motion is one which I'm not sure would end up here, and we're looking for a kind of a ruling on that, but it's to do with the development at 1451 Wellington Street at the corner of Island Park Drive. This is a development that's, from what I understand, is heading for a refusal at Planning Committee, a refusal recommendation from Planning on the May 13th Planning Committee meeting. And this is a property that has come before developers 5 times and have had people walk away from because it is a severely contaminated site, and financially it just doesn't work for a developer to build within the guidelines of what's in our CDP. And you know, we're all interested in keeping the CDP, we're all interested in planning certainty, but planning certainty has to be viable. And so what this notice of motion is in regards to is altering the brownfield policy in regards to this particular property to pay 100%, that the city would pay 100% of this cleanup on this particular property, so that the builder can build a 9-story building instead of a 12-story building on this site, and they won't walk away. This has been a derelict site for a long time, right in the gateway to our business area in Wellington West, and if it's a $5 million cleanup, and that's adding to the the fact that this property cannot be developed, that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable to the community to have a derelict lot. It's unacceptable to me, and it should be unacceptable to the city.
Okay. This is not the speech to defend the proposal. This is the speech to lay the proposal on the table.
Yes. So what so I don't know if this is the right place for an exemption to a brownfield.
Lay it on the table here, and if we need to move it around, Mr. Mark and I will figure out where the most appropriate place for it to be considered, but I would suspect it might be FEDCO, but we don't know.
Because at this point I'm asking just primarily for this site, which is coming May 13th, and the FEDCO meeting, I don't know what will happen on May 13th if we don't have this through a decided yes or no.
On a notice of motion, actually, no, you can't. Okay.
I
know, sorry.
Listening, I didn't realize you were going to go on that long.
I didn't mean to. I just got...
No, but...
I was taking some counsel from Councillor Harder.
No, this is for clarification. You have a lot of brownfields in your area.
Yeah.
As part of that, were you asking that we identify where the
site is? Yes, I am, actually. Yeah, that would be part of the motion as well, and maybe that's where it would fit within planning. I would like to have each one of my sites identified as to whether or not they are financially viable to develop given the GFA and the CDP.
Or how bad they are vis-a-vis
Exactly.
each
This
other.
is one of the worst, but I don't know. I mean, we have the other one that was turned down on Armstrong, which was a $10 or $12 million cleanup.
It just would help with ramifications, I think.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any other notices of motion? Any other, is it other business that's next? Other inquiries? Other business? Okay, we're adjourned until the 13th of May. Thank you very much.